why do we really need to learn Photoshop as interior designers? First of all, I think it's just a great tool to enhance our work and our presentations. And so moving from hand rendering to digital, I think I mentioned that at first I was kind of concerned about it, but now I really have created a very nice hybrid look where I still do some hand marker work and then I enhance it in Photoshop. There's just something that for our clients, or if you're entering a design competition, there's just something about an AutoCAD drawing that's sterile. That just, it communicates information, but it doesn't spark emotion. So when we're working with Photoshop and adding color, know that we're doing this because we're selling our ideas. So you have to sell your idea before you can actually get the project. So that's what I think about when I think of all of these digital visualization techniques that we're learning. It's to help us sell our projects or earn our scholarship or get a new client, etc. So today you're going to continue your study of Photoshop, and we're going to look at the tools, select tools. You worked on that last week. Some lasso tools, the magic wand, the eyedropper, the paintbrush, eraser, paint bucket, gradient, pattern stamp, and line tool. So these are all mostly tools that you've already been introduced to in the last two exercises, but now we're just going to build upon that knowledge. So I'll try to take breaks between the steps so that, if you're, and I should ask you, Michelle and Lauren, are you listening and asking questions, or are you actually trying to do the project, while we're live?
Right now, I'm just listening.
Okay.
Me too. I usually just listen and then take notes.
Great. So that helps me out so I can pause for questions, but knowing that you're not actually trying to do the work. So thank you for that. So I'm going to go ahead and open up the instructions. And so here are your instructions. Again, this is just the toolbar that's located to the left of our tool panel in Photoshop. I try to highlight each week the tools that we'll be looking at and where they're located. So that'll be on the front page. I like to have a map of where we're starting and where we're going. So this is the assignment for this week, starting with a black and white line floor plan, and then adding both just basic color and then actually adding pattern and Photoshop drawings, those drawings that have the background removed. This project is worth 70 points, and this was the inspiration. Emerald green was really popular a few years back, so it was inspired by this emerald green color scheme in black and cream. So the instructions begin on page 4. So go ahead and grab those instructions, and then I have to close those out. Okay, so we're going to open up Photoshop, and our instructions begin on page 4. You can see before class, here was my little practice. I was just getting refamiliarized with the assignment before class, but we're going to start from scratch. And so to do that, you're going to open up a new drawing. And I just had you say this on 8.5 by 11 paper or background. So to begin, you're going to start with a new file. And so you're going to click File, New. What's nice is last week we set all this up. And if you're working from your home computer, I like how it kind of saves your old information. So you'll see over the course of this semester more and more information that's saved on my Photoshop software. So we already set up an 8.5 by 11 last week, but let's go over it again. This is exercise 3. This is the floor plan. 8.5 inches wide, 11 inches high. That makes it portrait. Resolution 300, RGB color, 8-bit, and our background's going to be white. And you hit create. So now I have my background. You can see it's up here in the tab. I can even move my tabs around. You can play with them and move them around if you want, so that you can do X out of some of these, which would probably be helpful so you guys don't get confused. I'm not saving that. All right. So I have my paper, and the next thing we're going to do is we're going to place our image on the background. So you're going to grab the JPEG line drawing. So in the exercises, just so you can observe the line quality difference, the one that we're doing in class was saved as a JPEG, a photograph, and your homework was saved as a PDF. So it's for you to observe the difference in line quality. We're going to do File, Place Embedded. You're going to go where you saved those. I just put those on my desktop. And I dragged it over, and it was really small. And so it comes in really small. So like your assignment last week, it comes with the handles around the edge, an X in the center, and you can move that around, but you can also resize it by clicking on a corner handle, drag, and release. So again, when I say click, drag, and release, that's click down on my mouse, drag, and then lift the finger up on my mouse. So once you get it where you want, I like that size, I want to center it. A guide comes up because we've selected that. You then hit enter on your keyboard. And you're going to see that as a JPEG, the line quality, especially around curved areas, isn't as nice as the PDF. So you'll observe that when you work on your 2 exercises. Any questions? All right. From the Windows drop-down, you're going to want to make sure that, as usual, that you have swatches, that you have properties, that you have layers on, options, and tools. That makes what appears on your desktop, on your screen, on your work surface. You want to make sure once you brought your image in that you right-click on that layer and rasterize that. So last week's assignment, you should have gotten really good at that because I had you bring in a lot of images. Brought the image in, right-clicked, rasterized. Like last week, we want to right-click on that layer, and we want to duplicate the layer. And so we've made a copy of it. I don't know if we did this last week, but you can actually lock the layer so that you have your original and your copy. And you want to make sure that you don't draw on your original, so you can click on your original, and there is an icon that's a lock. And when you click on that, then the lock appears. So even if I wanted to, I couldn't draw on this layer. But it's there for me if I need it, and I can unlock it and duplicate it and do what I need to do. So that's just your safeguard. You want to make sure that sample all layers is selected. So we'll on the magic wand, that the fourth one down from the top, it was hidden. And when I click on that, you want to make sure sample all layers is hidden. I can't see that, so I just have to pull that down because I have some reporting information. But right here, sample all layers is selected, which we need to deselect. Just confirming. Okay. So I'll ask my two students who are here. I'm going to start coloring in. Let's just start with my walls. I'm going to start coloring in my walls. You could draw right on top of this drawing. You can put color in and such. But the problem is if you make a mistake and you want to erase it or just drop it in, delete, you're going to ruin your drawing as well. You will erase your drawing as well. So this exercise today will have a lot of layers. So at the bottom of page 4, we're going to start by coloring in the walls. We're going to create a new layer. You're going to go to the bottom of the layer panel, and you're going to click the square with the plus sign that says create new layer. And it goes ahead and adds a layer above your floor plan copy. You can double click on the text to rename it. And we're going to rename it Living Room Walls. And you can always just click off of it to deselect the text. So now I have a layer with nothing on that. I know there's nothing on that because I can look closely and it's just that gray and white checkerboard background. So there's nothing on it right now, but I'm going to go ahead and use the wand tool to select the area inside of the walls that I want to add color. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to add color to the walls, and then I'm going to have that color cast a drop shadow. So it's going to give our walls some really nice definition. So to highlight the interior walls, you might want to zoom in. Again, we have a magnifying glass. And you can also zoom in by using the Alt key and your roller on your mouse. So I'm going to go ahead and click on my mouse to select the inside of that wall area, and marching ants appear. You can hold the Shift key down to select multiple areas. And I'm not selecting the window. So windows, I want sunshine to come through. Walls, I want to be solid. So I'm clicking on my walls, holding my Shift key down while I'm doing that. And this is also an opening, so I'm not going to add color there. So I'll show you how I got a nice light gray color. So next week when we get to elevations, I'll show you how to download the Sherwin-Williams or Dunn-Edwards paints to your Photoshop. But today, you can go ahead and use your eyedropper, and you can select a color, white. You can look through colors here, so white. And just as a reminder, you can double click. So this, I've selected white. This is the color that's activated, the top color. I could double click on that and it brings me to my color picker. So I can go from gray, white, and find a nice light gray and hit OK. So I have this nice light gray color, and I'm going to use the paint bucket to add just a very light color. It could even be white. even though you don't see it, you can still add pigment, that white pigment. Once you get that the color that you want, I probably could have done it the opposite and clicked on black and gone the opposite way and looked for a nice color. So you can change it. So I just made it a little darker so it's easier to see. Select Control and the letter D on your keyboard to deselect. So the next thing I'm going to do is from that same living room layer. So when you look at it, it still looks just empty with gray and white checkers. But what's actually on it is this little bit of gray for my walls. So I'm on the bottom of page 5. And we're gonna, that pigment that we added, we're gonna create effect, we're gonna create a drop shadow. So I don't know if any of you last week when you put in your artwork or if you put in your little paint chips or anything, if you created an effect or a drop shadow, but this is just the same process. So from your living room walls, you're gonna go to FX, drop shadow. This is where you select the color. I'm keeping it black. I want it to blend. I want it to multiply. So I want it to multiply so that when I put the flooring in, it kind of melts in with the flooring like a shadow would, rather than just sit like paint on top of it. So that's the point of putting multiply. The opacity is 75%, so that still will look pretty dark. For drama, let's see what else we have. Angle 135 I like. You can do that, or you can type it in. And you can play with the different distances and spreads. And I made the suggestion of distance around 8. Spread 10 is fine. Size, you know, depending on how much shadow you want to see, you can make that. Let's just make it at 12, and we can make it bigger if we want later. And then hit OK. So now what you see is that our walls have a drop shadow. And so, you know, maybe I do need to make that a little bigger just for you to kind of enjoy and look at. Let's just, if you watch up on my screen, just watch how I'm making it bigger, just so that you can see it more. So I talk to students in my drawing class. I'm not very dramatic in my design style or my rendering style. I have that soft hand. So even when I cast shadows, I don't go very bold, but I want you to see them. I want you to see the shadows up there. So I made them a little more pronounced. So now all of a sudden, you know, there's some definition. So we're moving away from something that's so 2D flat to giving it a little bit of life. I'm going to go ahead and just repeat those same steps here. This is the outdoor patio area. So for those of you online who are listening to the recording, I just duplicated the steps and put some wall color in and shadows on my patio. Questions? So moving to page 6, we're going to bring in a wood seamless texture for the background here. So you've saved a couple of those images that I've provided for you. Feel free to find your own. But a couple of things I want to say. So the wood samples that I've saved for you are pretty orange, pretty warm. And I think with this color scheme that a lighter wood actually looks better. So like last week, we're going to grab that seamless texture and we're going to put it in our pattern library. It's when we open up that image that we want to adjust the color. So we're going to use one of those wood seamless textures. Please make a note for those of you who are taking notes that when you search wood and when you search wood seamless textures on the internet, there's two types of wood. A planked wood with grooves and joined together like for flooring, and then just wood that might be for a surface like furniture. So what we're looking for is something that looks like a wood flooring. So it's my recommendation when you do your Google search or your search to do seamless textures, wood planked floor. All right, I'm going to bring it into my library. File, open, and I'm going to bring that down so I can see it. So here's my bleached wood sample that I really like the look of, but I can see a little bit of the edge. So I'm just going to do that for you first. So I'm opening it up. And I want it to look a little more gray. So I can click on, I call it my Oreo cookie here, my adjustments. And I can play with hue and saturation, brightness, etc. So you want to do it here before you bring it in. How about color? And resume again. So I'm adjusting the color balance. So just play around with it. Just, you can add some more blue. Ooh. What else I can do? Make it a little softer. You get the point, though. You can make it not as brighter, or so you get it, a little grayer. Play around with that. Take some time. I didn't take a lot of time. And then we're going to go ahead and put that in our library. So we're on page 6. Put that nice. Edit. I'm looking for my defined pattern. Did was I changed my colors. I kind of made it a little, less warm and red. And then I flattened the image. And now I'm doing edit, define pattern. So this is my bleached wood, and I'm just going to call it bleached wood grayer. And I'm going to hit OK. So now you're going to tab back to your floor plan. So I have my wood in my library. I'm going to add a layer. I'm going to call it wood floors. Use the wand tool to select the area. So here's something interesting. So do you see that the area right here isn't capturing that corner because of the cast shadow. So I could do a couple of things. I could just turn that off. I could move my wood floors below the shadows. That's probably the best idea. And then I can select that area. So I'm going to do Control D to deselect. So I want to get in there and select that area. So I could go back to my floor plan, my copy of my floor plan, and turn off my shadows for just a moment so that it makes it easier to select. So sometimes I do things just to kind of show you the problems that you'll come into, and you can struggle and try to catch everything. And it's much easier, just turn it off for a sec. so that it's off, that your magic wand can just catch that nice clean highlight, and then go back to my wood floors. And you can bring in the pattern a couple ways. So for those of you who are watching the recording, I used the magic wand tool to select the area that's going to receive the wood floor. I held the shift key down and made sure that I selected the area underneath the door swing. So a lot of times new students working in Photoshop or anything rendering, they forget to color the area underneath the door swing. So we're going to use the pattern fill, or we can use the pattern stamp. So here's our pattern stamp. We just brought the one that says it's grayer. So look at all my wood I brought in. Here's the one that's a little grayer. And last week I showed you how you can brush that in. So that looks pretty nice. And then I also showed you how you can do adjust the pattern size, pattern. You could have brought it in here and then adjust the size. So let's just take it down to 50 just to see the difference. So there it is there. Questions? So thank you. I felt like I was a little convoluted, but it is what we did on week 1. We put a little bit of a wood background on our materials board, but this time we want to think about the shadows. So speaking of shadows, do you see them? So we want to make sure that the layer of the living room walls is above the floor. So I clicked on the living room walls, which brought in the drop shadows, and I brought it above the layer of wood. So now you should feel wood, you should feel that the walls are filled in and that the shadow is actually nice and dropping on the wood floor. Move to page 7 to add, to repeat the steps to add patio floor. We want to add some wood pavers there. So let's see, I want my floors to be underneath my shadows, so I'm adding another layer. I'm going to call it patio floor. I will bring in the the tile. So I want to do File, Open. Wherever you've saved, I've saved mine to my desktop. I'm going to bring in some nice gray tiles. I'll hit Open, and I will save that, Edit, Define Pattern. It's just called Gray Tile. I'm adding that to my bank, my library, and I'm going to hit OK. Tab back to your floor plan. Make sure you are on the correct layer. So I'm on my patio floor layer that I've created. Select the magic wand. Select the area. Aha, it's not picking up with the shadows again. So I need to Control D to deselect. I need to turn off that patio walls just for a second so that I can select. I just holding down my shift key to get in there. All right, I'm gonna go make sure I'm on my floor again. The area selected. We can bring in our pattern. It's in our bank because we brought it in. You can play with the size. Let's see, what size do my instructions recommend? I say 25. And just as a reminder that before you hit OK, that you can move these around a little bit. So like, I don't like seeing this funky little sliver. So I'm going to go ahead and pull that up. So again, you can move that around. I think that looks really good. And then hit OK. And I need to turn my shadows back on, my patio. There they are. So there's quite a few ways to add an area rug. We could add an area rug and just make it at 100%, so you know that it fills in the space. So we can do that. But I wanted to show you just another way, another tool. So let me just describe what we're doing. We're going to go to the black and white drawing. We're going to select this area underneath the coffee table and the ottomans, and then we're going to hit delete on our keyboard. We're then going to bring the image of the rug and stick it under that layer. So we're basically making a cutout, and then we're putting a picture underneath it, like a mat board or a picture frame or something. So what I recommend, okay, is to go to our copy layer, our floor plan copy layer. Use the magic wand to select the area that we want to cut out. And I'm going to hit delete on my keyboard, and it's going to look the same. But let me just tell you what I'm doing. I'm hitting delete on my keyboard. Let me just turn off the layers underneath so you can see. I made a hole. I made a cutout. So the reason why it was still white, it's because of this background layer was still on. So from my copy layer, I selected that background, that area, and I hit delete on my keyboard. And so I've created a hole. Control D to deselect. Next, I'm going to bring in that zebra area rug. Or if you find one that's not as obnoxious, that's fine too. So File, I'm going to place Embedded. I'm going to find that great rug. There it is. And it's really big. So I'm placing it so that I'm resizing it. Do you see it's covering up my ottomans? Do you see that it's covering up my coffee table? And I'm going to hit enter on my keyboard. I need to rasterize the layer. And here's the trick. The floor plan copy, that's where I made the cutout. Drag the rug underneath the copy. And now it's in this clean little box underneath the coffee table and ottoman. Questions? To page 8. So we're at the bottom of page 8 of your instructions. We're going to create a new layer and we're going to label it pillows. We're going to use the wand tool to select pillows on the sofas that we want to add a bit of a pattern to. So starting with corner, we're going to put some pillows. We're going to put some pattern on some pillows, that honeycomb pattern. So let's put this on its own layer. And before we maybe do that, I just want to point out, I'm going to create that layer. It's going to be called pillows. So again, these are things that I did intentionally. So I'm going to click on this pillow right here with the magic wand. Ah, look, it selects the pillow. That's great. Now watch what happens when I select another pillow. Oh, it's selected 2. It's because there's a gap somewhere there and there's a gap somewhere here. So it's selecting 2 pillows and part of the arm. If I select this pillow, it selects this cushion of the sofa. So again, sometimes I bring problems to your attention so that you know how to solve them. So I'm just going to come in a little closer. And what's happening is right here, do you see that there's a gap? So today we're going to just go over ways to, work around that. Typically what I do is I just select the color black. I select a pencil tool or something, and I just close it up. I zoom in and I close it up. That's the easiest way to do that. Edit, undo. So I would zoom in and just fill up that little gap, and and there's a gap right there. No problem solved. So let me do that for a couple of them. For this one. So I zoom in, close, 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 close. Ah, gap. So you can use the line tool and close the gap up. That works. Let's see. So now do you see that it just highlighted the pillow? So I have to confess that's usually what I do, but you can also that one's looking good. You can also use the lasso tool. So third down from the top, there's something called a magnetic lasso tool. So you can use that tool. The magnet attaches to the edges. And so I'm holding down on my mouse as I drag along. So see how, oh, there's the gap. So just quickly, you can see that it's easier just to draw a quick line, but now you know. And then when you get back to where you started, you release your finger, and that area is highlighted. So we need to bring in the honeycomb pattern. We've created a new layer. And see the highlighting. We've created a new layer. I'm on the pillows layer. And the first pillow that we're going to bring something has a problem. So Carmen, Lauren, Michelle, do you see where the problem is? That little gap right there. So I'm going to leave it up to you. You see it? Good. Do you see it?
Okay.
Okay. It's that little gap right there. So I just might go ahead and do that. And then when I come in, I have my pillow again, all nice and highlighted. If I wanted to get something in there, I can as well. Oh, and look, another one, another problem. So we're going to bring our honeycomb pattern in, file, open. Do you have a preference of a honeycomb? I think I gave you lots of them to a few of them. File, we're placing it in our, we're defining the pattern by placing it in our library. Edit, define pattern. It's in my library now. Great, I'll go back to my floor plan. I could either brush it in. I see what's happening. So I'm going to pause for those of you who are listening to the recording. What happened is that there's a shape on these shapes aren't letting us manipulate those. So instead of a line tool, I should be using a pencil. So I'm going to go ahead and delete these and get it prepped up for you so that I can go ahead and put a few pillows in for this assignment. So for those of you online, I should have gone ahead and just use my tool, and my magnet tool, and gone around, followed my directions. But I was just saying, normally I usually just enclose my spaces. A little exaggerated, but you can see I'm enclosing. And that now when I go back, I can bring in my pillow. In my library now. I'm on that layer. I think I'm causing all kinds of, I wasn't on my pillow. So my problem is I should have resized it before I hit OK. So, but another good educational opportunity, right? I could erase if I wanted to. Do that. As long as I don't erase my gaps that I enclosed. I just did. So I think for the sake of time, and maybe if you're online and you might want to try this, because clearly I had some problems. That's how it's done. And as we move more into exploring the software, we can bend and warp and distort these patterns to really make it look like it's moving around an object, but we'll get there in a week. So still kind of just putting some of those colors on. Turn this back on.
Okay.
So that other students can hear. So Carmen had a question that she's, doing a lot of her work and she, needs to leave and then come back to her work. And so I asked you to submit it as a PDF or a JPEG. So we have a JPEG and we have a PDF.
I saved it as the under JPEG.
Before you do that, if you want to go back and work on your drawing, you first have to save it as a Photoshop drawing.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And then go back when you're all done and go File, Save as one of those, so that you always have a Photoshop drawing.
I see. So I'll just save it under Photoshop, not to my flash drive.
No, so it doesn't have to do where you're saving it. It's just so. Okay, so you've taken AutoCAD. Have you taken AutoCAD?
Yes, I have.
So you know how you have to save your AutoCAD drawing, but then you can save it as a PDF or a JPEG to send it to someone smaller. So you need to save your drawing file. And in Photoshop, that's the workable file, PSD.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So you can save it to your flash drive, your desktop, up in the cloud, but you have to save it first as Photoshop and then do File, Save As again, and call it to print or to turn in.
I
hope that answered your question.
Yeah, and another thing, I'm having an issue with the toolbar. I don't see it appear on my computer no more. I don't know what happened, and I don't see it appear, so I have to be searching every thing that I have to use. I don't see my toolbar no more.
Go to the Windows drop-down.
Okay, Windows. Okay,
and
I'm here.
My guess is Tools isn't checked.
Oh. Okay.
So.
Yeah. Tool, oh, there we go. Yes. Okay. Oh, I see it. Okay, great.
So whatever's checked, that's what's going to be displayed on your work surface.
I see. Okay, perfect.
But these are good questions because other people are having the same problems.
Yeah. So you know what? Yesterday I was so confused, very late, because I moved something and I couldn't find layers. So today in the morning I was just already tired. I said I'm gonna go today in the morning. I worked again and
if you don't see layers, you might not have layers. You might not have layers checked if you lost.
Yeah, I just searched that on YouTube right now, and it showed me how to do it. So yeah, excellent. I got it. Yes.
Well, excellent.
Yeah.
So we can kind of just go over all of the tools on page 9. We're just going to add sofas, color to the sofa. So let's see, add that. Carmen, you click back on if you have a question. I'm just going to turn you off for a second. And so now we have our sofas. And same process as before is that you're going to click on the sofa, that area that you want. Use the eyedropper to pick color. And I'm going to find a beautiful green. And that color comes here. Remember, I can scroll around and I'm watching over here what color it is. And once I get the color that I want, I can either paint it on or I can drop it in with a bucket. So I'm just going to show you something with the paintbrush tool. So with the paintbrush tool, so it's hidden behind my pencil because I just used my pencil. You can use the bracket keys on your keyboard next to the letter P to play with the size. Right now it's solid 100% opacity. I'm just going to take that down. So if you want to, you can make this solid color, but you can also kind of paint it in if you want to feel painterly. So if you want to start building up, like maybe there's a little shadow under the pillow or something. So up to you. So here's the difference. Just solid color versus painting it on. So up to you. But on page 9, you're going to fill in your sofas in green or whatever color that you want that's popular, maybe Merlot or something like that. And you're going to finish shading and shadowing the rest of your furniture. So let's say you want this pillow to be gray. And again, you can just drop in the color or you can paint it on. And by painting it on, it looks a little more highlight at the top, darker. Control D to deselect. So there's you getting a little more painterly. And then we want to move in our hour together or so. We want to go over on the bottom of page 10 how to add objects. So there's designers that are out there that just bring in an empty floor plan into Photoshop and just bring in furniture. Okay, just bring in furniture. Forget having to paint everything. They just bring it in. So today we're going to bring in some objects. And this will be just like what you did when you were working with your mood board. So I'm going to bring in a chair. I'm going to bring in some plants. And just to see what this is like. So I guess I should. Black and white gradient tool. This is my table. There. That would look pretty if it was gold, maybe white and a gold color, make it look kind of shiny gold. So bringing in furniture. So there's, I gave you some plants, some palm trees, a chair. And usually you ask me, where do I get those? And usually I just say this. I just say furniture, Photoshop, plan view, free. You know, I want a chair for Photoshop, plan view, free. So that's how I Google search and how I find these. So we're going to place a piece of furniture in just like you placed last week, objects with no backgrounds. What do I have? I have a patio tree. Okay. File. Let's see, what else do I have? Put chair in. I want a chair. I'm going to place it. So just drag this here. Now that's a pretty big chair. That's like a 48-inch, 50-inch wide chair. If my door to swing is 36. And so just do you see how that helps for me to get a sense of scale? So I brought it in and then I can move it around. Real easy. I don't want it to hit the door swing. You know, maybe you want to put it up in this corner or something. I just put it right here for today and then hit enter on your keyboard. File, place embedded, just like you've done. I'm going to bring in a palm. So again, no sense of scale. Click on your mouse, drag, release, move. Click on a corner, click, drag, release. Repeat. File, place embedded. Ooh, patio table, all right. So again, and this is something for you to look at, Carmen. When I'm bringing these in, I'm not bringing them in as a JPEG or an image or a PDF. I'm bringing them in as a Photoshop drawing. So I'm bringing them in as a PSD. And because I'm bringing them in as a Photoshop drawing, it doesn't have that background that we removed. If I were to save this, if I were to save the same little guy as a JPEG, it would bring the white background back in there. So that's why. So just kind of start observing the difference between when I'm bringing in pictures and when I'm bringing in Photoshop drawings. So these are PSDs. The backgrounds. File. Let's see what else do I have. Place embedded. I have another plant. Again, Photoshop drawing, so no background. So we have a nice plant. I'm going to bring in another Photoshop drawing that I've already removed the background, or I downloaded them as that. Table plant, Photoshop drawing right there, PSD. Click, drag, release. Plant there. Enter when you get it where you want. So as you grow as a visual illustrator, it might bother you. It bothers me that all my greens are cool green. You see how nice and cool green? So I know that people are out there still cool green, cool green, cool green. And all of a sudden this gets really yellow. So I might want to warm up my plant, or I might want to cool down my tree. So something to think about. Any other objects do we have to do? I'll resume. So the question from Carmen was that, can we choose any color that we want? And basically everything is black, white, cream. So, you can add blue or yellow or anything like that. So we can't help but be designers, right? So what I usually do, Carmen, is I give you specific instructions with, like, here's the material, here's the color, here's what I would do. And then your homework is going to be like, you can make it your own. So I give you a second floor plan that you can do whatever you want to. So again, if you want to follow step by step the instructions, do it with this green and black. If you want to change it up a little bit, if you're there, do it.
Okay, so I can do the original you're asking for, and then I can do another one if I would like my original, my color, whatever color I want to use. Is that correct?
Yes. So you have a second floor plan that's your homework, and there's no instructions for it. You're just going to take what you learned with the in class and then make it your own.
Perfect. Okay. Thank you.
The next, we're moving to the bottom of page 11. And we're going to start adding like shade and shadow. So clearly for those of you who are here now and for those of you online, I didn't finish this, right? I didn't finish coloring it in. You need to finish it. Finish coloring your couch, put in your pillows, finish coloring it in. You see the example. So again, I was just, for the sake of time, just showing you little, ways to do this, little tricks. So the next trick is, because I'm right-handed, I like my sunshine to come from my left. So I usually I have the highlight here. My sunshine's going to come from my left and shadows are going to go to the right. You don't have to do them that way. It's just my habit. So you can see that we have cast shadows from the walls. We have a little highlight here. So let's add a little sunshine coming in from the windows. So to do this, you're going to want to create a new layer. You can call it whatever you want. I call it sunshine. You're going to want to pick a nice creamy color. The creamy color has to be on the top. I did that just by hitting that arrow there to bring that to the top. So I have this nice, you can use white if you want. I just did a little warm white for my sunshine. And we're going to use a soft brush to brush on some color, but it's coming through this window. So the third lasso tool from the top. So I showed you the magnetic that clips on the edge. And so last week I showed you the polygonal lasso tool. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have this come out on a 45-degree angle. Click, release, click, release, click, release. I want that. Click, release, join. Now clearly I don't want that funky little edge, but watch what I'm going to do. So I have this white or this cream color. I'm going to select a brush. I'm going to go up to my brush tool option bar. I can see it's a nice fuzzy one. I want to make it very transparent, so like 20 something. And I'm going to either change the size of it or click on my keyboard and make this really big. So do you see how big my circle is? But the light's only color is going to be applied within that highlighted area. So I guess watch what I say rather than my words. Click, click. So do you see a little sun just came through? I'll exaggerate it. There's some sunshine coming through my window. Control D to deselect. So it should look like there's some sun coming through your window. Repeat. Polygonal lasso tool. Try to eyeball that nice 45-degree angle. Brush, soft, big, click. Control D. So I have sun, you can bring some coming through here if you want. I just added to my tree to soften my tree up. And if this was a lamp, my lamp needed some sun. So that's light. And you could look at my example that I got a little more detailed in. Questions? After you add some sunshine on page 12 of your instructions, you're going to add some shade and shadow. So sunshine, shade and shadow. So don't be afraid as we apply shade and shadow. You are not going to ruin your beautiful drawing. Remember, we are creating these layers with nothing on them. So if I totally blow it, right? If I totally blow it, putting a little shade or shadow on, from my table, it doesn't matter because I could just erase it and I'm not going to hurt anything. So we're going to do black. The opacity's on 20 right now. And I'm going to be, again, I'm honest with you. I typically go in and eyeball it. So I'm going to eyeball some. So if my light's coming this way, I might do this, right? Just add a little shadow. Click, click. If you're not comfortable doing that, let's give you some tips. All right, so if the sun is coming here, let's put some shadow here. So I'm going to make this just darker so that you can see it for those of you who are watching. If you want to click a straight line, click on a point and hold the shift key down, and you're going to get a nice straight line. So where I did these freehands, because they're kind of organic shape, I held my shift key down while dragging, and I got that nice edge. So again, shift, shift, you can even click 2 points, shift. So this one I did click, hold the shift key down, and click a second point. Click, click. So if you go over the edge like I did intentionally here, it kind of makes it look like there's like a bevel or maybe a cushion here. So it's oftentimes, if on hard surfaces, if you go over the edge a little bit, it indicates some type of edge treatment. So shadows make the difference. So again, I clicked, I hit shift key, line. Click, hold the shift key, line. That's going to be a little harder, isn't it? So maybe, which tool should I use here for this circle? So I want to put a shadow here. So I'm clicking along the edge, clicking along the edge, clicking, 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 clicking. And then I could do this. I missed my point there. Because I want to protect this, and I want to put a shadow here. So watch what I'll do. I want to, again, just put that in this area. So how did I do? So brush. I want to make it kind of the same shape as this. I'll make it dark so you can see it. My hope is if I click, it's only going to click inside the only going to put color inside the highlighted area. So it overflew quite a bit. I want it closer. I want it tighter. Okay, so do you see how it went out too far? So that's where I would go in with an eraser, no big deal, and clean up. So why this is looking very harsh is I think I have a hard brush. So it would be nice if I softened it with a soft eraser. That would be good. I'm having trouble with this. So I like more of this feathered edge rather than for shadows. That looks good. Control D to deselect. And again, I'm on that layer. I can clean up at 100% if I wanted to. So shadows take a little more time. And Carmen, you weren't here for the beginning of the demonstration, but when you go back and review, we created these shadows for the walls using the drop shadow tool. So you can also go to objects and click on the object and put a drop shadow on the object. So students that are online, we were just playing around with moving to the objects that we brought in, and we just added a quick drop shadow. So I'm going to do one for you in the palm tree. So go to the layer that it's on, FX, for effects, drop shadow, boom. I guess I could do my tables and chairs too. That would have saved me some time right there. I'm making them a little darker just so that you can see them on the screen. Select my table and chairs, add the drop shadow, everything. I'm keeping the same angle. And now my table and chairs has a drop shadow. So please do go look on your online instructions. You can see what it looks like finished. I'm someone who likes to add some really straight lines and some sparkles, and we'll play around more with that. But today, your assignment is to finish this in-class demonstration, and then your homework is to do one of your own. And you can do the one for yourself any way you want, and bring as many or as little objects in as you want. So questions for those of you online. Otherwise, for those of you who are going to be watching the recording, this is due next week by midnight. You do now have a student facilitator who is available to answer questions today as well as Friday. So you should have been sent an invitation for office hours. So I'm here for you, but know that Rasha, she's great. She's taking this class, and she'll be there to answer questions as well.